Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by MacPaw, the maker of Clean My Mac X. Visit macpaw.com/podcast to download your copy and use the code MacVoices to save 5%. MacVoices is supported by LinkedIn Jobs. Find the right person for your business today with LinkedIn Jobs. Pay what you want and get $50 off your first job post at linkedin.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is part 2 of our MacVoices live discussion with Brittany Smith and Kelly Guimont about virtual conferences, in-person conferences, this year's WWDC, and a whole lot more. So we'll get right back into the conversation, and I hope you will join us next time on MacVoices Live.
There's a certain amount of, cross-pollination. Chuck, you were talking about social media. Generally, when I am somewhere, I am using it to post like where I am so that I can meet up with other people. Right. Like, especially like if for example, at WW last year, right? Like I was repping Mac Observer. So I was there, as the host of Daily Observations to go, hi, I'm interviewing developers. If you want to talk to me, here's the clever t-shirt I'm wearing today. Come find me in this area in this shirt, and then people could come, and then like somebody who was there who maybe I didn't know would come up and they would have the open, right, to introduce themselves, like, hey, I saw on Twitter, you said this was you, and I wanted to talk to you about the thing that I'm working on that I think would be great for Mac Observer to know about. And then, I got a chance to sit down and interview people. And I interviewed a few people that I otherwise would not have had an opportunity to talk to otherwise. And it was because I went on Twitter and said, hey, like I'm wearing my Goonies t-shirt today. You should come find me. So, it was Goonies Day when we were there last year. So like I had to, but
you had no choice.
I had no choice.
Goonies Day?
Right. The day the movie is set is June 6th.
Ah.
So
apparently I'm not a Goonies fan. Well, and Kelly,
I did
fix
that, Chuck. This is a highly solvable problem.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of.
I look forward to Chuck's Film Club podcast, where we will build a community around movies that Chuck needs to enjoy. No, I'm kidding. But I feel like there's a lot to it, and there's the random of it, and like bumping into somebody or like standing. Brittany can probably attest to this because she was standing in your vicinity or my vicinity at various points, and people would walk up and be like, hi, and talk to, one of us. And now Brittany has met a new person that she wouldn't have met otherwise because she was standing there with you or I and somebody that we already knew that maybe she didn't know already, and, make an introduction, whatever. So.
And I had the same experience. I put the same kind of thing on Twitter, minus the Goonies t-shirt, but just, hey, this is who I am and this is where I'm going to be. And if you'd like to talk about your app or your project, come on over. And people did. I wish more had, but I certainly was very happy with the response I got, because it's flipping it around. It's got to be a little bit difficult for a developer to walk over and not know me, not know you, and just say, hi, I'm here to tell you about what I'm doing. And, hey, neither one of us bite. And I got some great interviews, and I know we overlap some interviews, which is terrific because, we come at things from different angles. So,
right. And we want to talk about different stuff. And I I remember seeing some of the interviews that you did with some of the people I also interviewed, and they were very different. And I want to talk to the person who maybe isn't the best at the promotion of their app in the first place. Like, this is my app. It's near and dear to me because I can pick that up in talking to you about whatever it is that you're excited about. Like, that's going to come across. You don't have to be a super slick, awesome PR person in order to tell me about, like, I care about this app that I'm building very much. This is what you need to know about it. Let me share that with you. This is why I'm building it. I'm passionate about this thing.
And sometimes you get the darndest apps, but it's really important to that person. Yeah. And that's one of the questions I love to ask is, okay, why? Mm-hmm. What and the answers you get are fascinating. As at least to me, they're fascinating. So I assume that everybody else finds them fascinating.
And I don't want you to feel like you got robbed on the psychology. But there are questions that you can ask, like why in person, that you can phrase it and your tone and your expression shows I am genuinely interested. Whereas sometimes over social media or in a forum, someone could get defensive because they interpreted that why as being challenging or rude. And you do lose some of that human connection. And so somebody can come off sounding like a troll when they didn't mean to, or we're more likely to phrase things in a kinder way when you can make eye contact with the person or hear their real voice.
The tone is crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah, because just emailing somebody a list of questions and having one of them be, why did you build this, can come across 100 different ways, when what I mean is, why did you build this? I want to know. I'm interested in what it is that drove you to make this a thing out in the world and spend the time and effort on turning it into reality from the idea that you had.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brittany, I have one for you, but before I do that, I want to say, I don't want to speak for Kelly, but I will speak for myself. If you are a developer and you would have gone to DubDub and you have an application that you want to talk about, please email me, chuck@macvoices.com. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to get to know your app. And I'll be honest with you if I don't think it's a fit for my show and my audience. And that doesn't mean that that's a condemnation of your app. I'll say that right up front, because once in a while you run into something that, okay, this is either a little too geeky for my audience, and I don't think it would serve anybody to talk about it, or there's something that I try to maintain a pretty much of G to PG audience, and there's some apps out there that don't fit that. Right. So other than that,
you had us on live. Shame on you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I've been so good though.
Well, but Brittany, yeah. But Brittany, that was my question for you. So how do we go about phrasing what I just tried to do as really being genuine? Because I really mean it. And are there any tips or tricks you can give us, or are there tips and tricks you can give the person who wants to respond to it but maybe is hesitant to?
There were a lot of questions in there. Could you narrow one for me?
Well, okay. So how do I convince someone?
Like an invitation? As an invitation?
I just gave an invitation. How can I be more persuasive that they believe that I really am interested in talking to them about their app?
The invitation isn't usually as tricky, I don't think. Like, I want to, this is a thing you want material for your podcast, YouTube channel, and they want to talk about their app. The invitation may not be the hard part, but if you're conducting the interview over text, it might be. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
like
text.
That. Those will be some of the trickier things. Is to do it differently. But yeah, if I'm interested, I want to hear. That's helpful. But a lot of times, in other mediums, we don't always phrase things as directly in a positive way. Like, I want to know. And then you add a period. And based on your age and your experience, you'll interpret that period differently. And there's so much psychology if it's printed, and so much personal interpretation, like how high is their personal rejection sensitivity? They're going to be more likely to interpret it as being negative. Or if you don't respond right away in a text and they've got nothing else to go on, they might think you don't like them. Like, so much goes into it that you have no control over. Mm-hmm. Or not very much control over. There's some good phrasings, but it was just an example of how you can't entirely replace some of these other communications. And Zoom has been pretty good for a lot of things. I spend a lot of time in Zoom, but I do get face and voice, and that's great. Some people for just voice, and you can get a lot there. But you're missing some of the body language, and you just can't always get that somewhere else or a different way.
Okay, so then I'll ask you the other part of the question. How does someone get comfortable accepting that invitation? As sincere as I'm trying to be, or have tried to be, they need a little encouragement, or they need to get the right mindset.
Invite them. If they're worried, you sort of look at it from their perspective. What fears might they have in accepting it? He won't want me on anyway. they can only ask the question, right? But you could invite them to look at your previous ones so that they can see, oh, they will, Chuck's going to treat my material respectfully. He might ask me a tough question, but he's going to be respectful about, my pet project. And so if somebody's uncertain, they could go back and look at your previous interviews and see what an upstanding guy you are. And that is a good way to show it.
Okay. I'm not sure about the upstanding guy part, but
you certainly
he's sitting down, Brittany.
Ask for short periods of time.
the past evidence is there. Let's put it that way.
Well, and I think I want to. First of all, I want to join into Chuck's solicitation here. And you can email Kelly at macobserver.com. Also, if you have a pitch and you want to have that highlighted during DubDub. But what I think, Chuck, is that part of what does it is managing expectations, and you built your expectations into the ask that you put out on video just now and said, if it's a fit for my audience, because not everything is a fit for my audience, depending who they are. And I think if you put that in from the start, I think that helps a lot, because not everything is. And maybe what you do is point out say a little bit about who your audience is. Like, my audience is primarily end users with a few developers, or primarily people who have been using Macs for a very long time, or primarily people with iOS devices, or, whatever sort of broad strokes you want to use to give people an idea of who your audience is, so that they can tell, like, I write this thing that goes with an attachment you plug into your Lightning port to check the voltmeter on electrical outlets. Like, to me, that sounds like an awesome thing, but that doesn't sound like I definitely, as a person with a Lightning port, definitely want to know about this, because to me that sounds terribly exciting. Brittany could maybe care less. Chuck, maybe you care less, and maybe neither of our audiences are the fit for that, right? Maybe not. Like, if I was doing,
you should tell them that you love it, but it's not your audience, and tell them the things you like about it legitimately, right. Yeah, and that smooths communication too.
Yeah, and if I was doing the Daily Electrician podcast, obviously this would be an excellent fit for my audience. However, I don't. And so maybe it's not the best fit. Now, if they're doing something cool with the Lightning port that I can talk about, like, here's a way that this place has found to open up the Lightning port and make it turn into other things. I've absolutely made up this mythical product. If it exists and you're out there, Kelly at macobserver.com. But because I just made that up and went, why isn't this a thing? As I was sitting here turning it over in screen just now. But I think part of it, Chuck, is just building in and giving some of that information up front. And that's what I would like as well. Like, if you are debuting something and you want us to know about it, like, let us know about it. Not everything is a fit for every audience. So there may be something, Chuck, that's the sweet spot for folks that listen to you, but maybe not necessarily for folks who listen to me. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Like Brittany was saying, like, your product is still awesome, but the people you need it in front of are not necessarily the people that listen to me, or maybe not that listen to you. And not for me isn't the same at all as not for everybody. And there used to be a whole lot of that. This is a completely separate show. There used to be a whole lot of that in the Apple community. Like, when the first iPhone SE came out, it got trashed by a lot of Apple people because it wasn't the phone for them. It wasn't the biggest. It wasn't the fastest. It wasn't the meanest. It didn't do the bestest things. It was a phone that was meant for capital P people. And the folks who work on all of those websites could not wrap their heads around it. And I feel like some of that has shifted slightly, because the new iteration of the iPhone SE got a lot of reviews that were like, for me, myself, this is not the best thing. But for my family members for whom life does not revolve around their iOS device, this is an awesome phone for them. I can see where this would be a great thing for somebody. I am just not the person that it's for. And I think there's a certain amount of that goes to this as well. So, Chuck, I look forward to there's like 4 shows in the statement I just made right there. But I look forward to how to get the press's attention, because that's the thing that I've been doing forever. And I want to get that. I want to give you the attention. I want to give you the consideration. I want to give you the spotlight if it's the right avenue for you. And it's not doing anybody any favors if you're great and I think your product is great, but putting it on my show isn't going to get you anywhere. Like, there's a certain amount of that, that's where the connection comes in. Like, it's not for me. You know who you need to talk to is Chuck Joyner. Let me make an intro because I think that this is a perfect thing for Chuck to give to his audience. That's how a lot of that stuff works.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by MacPaw, the makers of Clean My Mac X. Have you upgraded to Mac OS Catalina? Then you need Clean My Mac X. There are almost certainly files left over from your previous system that don't need to be there. Clean My Mac X can find them, let you know what they are and where they are, and help you get rid of them. And if you haven't upgraded to Catalina, you need Clean My Mac X. It will help you optimize your Mac to run its best, and when you're ready to upgrade, none of those old useless files will be transitioned over. In fact, whatever system your Mac is running or whatever Mac you are using, Clean My Mac X will help you get it running at its best and keep it running at its best. Get rid of all those outdated cache files, log files, and old email attachments. And don't worry, Clean My Mac X won't delete anything without you knowing about it and without your permission. Visit macpaw.com/podcast to download Clean My Mac X today and use the coupon code MacVoices to receive 5% off. Upon visiting macpaw.com/podcast, click the Buy Now button, then scroll to the bottom of your screen to enter the code before completing the purchase. Clean My Mac X is also available in the Apple App Store. That's Clean My Mac X from MacPaw. Your Mac, good as new. Thanks to MacPaw for their support of MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by LinkedIn Jobs. Now more than ever, we need people with the right skills to support our communities, especially the frontline workers who provide resources and care for those most in need. To help, LinkedIn is offering free job posts for healthcare and essential service organizations that need to quickly fill critical roles with the people who help us all. If you are hiring for one of these organizations, job posts on LinkedIn can help you quickly find the right people for your front line. For everyone else not on the front line, if you're not using LinkedIn, then you're missing out on the place where business people go to connect. And if you aren't using LinkedIn Jobs, then you're missing out on the best way to find your next great team member. There are over 675 million LinkedIn members just waiting for you to find them. Okay, not all 675 million, but more than enough to satisfy your needs, no matter what they are. To post a healthcare or essential service job for free, or if you're in another industry and have hiring needs, visit linkedin.com/MacVoices. That's linkedin.com/MacVoices. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn.com/MacVoices to find your next great team member. Thanks to LinkedIn Jobs for their support of MacVoices. And you bring up, like you say, there are a bunch of shows that we could have, based on your comments, because in the podcast world, at least in the Apple podcast world, I don't think any of us are in competition. I mean, we refer people back and forth. Hey, Kelly, I just interviewed so-and-so. You really ought to interview them too, because I know you're going to do it differently than I do, but it's still going to be informative and it's still going to be good. But you said some things in there that I feel like, because we are talking about Dub right now, and that's the primary reason we're getting together here, that people may perceive that it's not for just general consumption, if you will. And I disagree completely, because the developers and the apps, they're the things that you're using every day. I mean, when you wake up tomorrow morning, I don't know which app you're going to hit first. It's probably not going to be the app I hit first. It may not even be an app that's on my phone, but it's essential for you and the way you do whatever it is you do tomorrow morning. And so I think, things are pretty wide open. Honestly, I will say this. I seldom reject anybody from a show unless it is just a product that is really, really shaky, because I'm interested in all the products. I'm interested as much in the people behind the product as I am in the app they developed. I mean, even a game developer, and I don't know, not disparaging game developers, that's just not my thing. But I do find it fascinating to talk to somebody about why it was so important for you to build this little world on your phone and share it with people. And you gain a huge amount of insight into people when they talk about their motivations. And I find that fascinating. And I also then want to turn it and say, okay, now what's your next project going to be? Because a lot of times that's where they start, and now they're going to go off and do something that I would find useful as opposed to a game.
It sounds like you're as interested in the people as in the actual products you're interviewing about, which I think says a lot about you.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think the way that these people think and their creativity in coming up with things, even if it's something that doesn't apply to me, I absolutely find that fascinating. And if it does apply to me, that just makes, that's just icing on the cake. I still get the cake, but now I get icing too. And that's phenomenal.
Just cut out that video and just use that to tell people you want to interview them. You'll be fine.
What, the icing on the cake?
No, about your passion and why you're doing it. Why you want to hear these stories and the products, like you just said. Yeah.
Well, Kelly, I think you do the same. I mean, because I've heard your interviews, and you bring the Kelly enthusiasm. You bring the Kelly enthusiasm to anything you do. You could be cleaning out the garage, and you would have the Kelly enthusiasm.
There is no Kelly enthusiasm in cleaning out the garage. I'm here to tell you.
I can't believe that. I can't believe that.
I can tell you, her garage puts mine to shame.
In what? No, never mind. I don't want to know.
It's the wall of pegboard. That's what she's talking about. The organization of the pegboard in the back of the garage. That's what she means.
I see.
All of the organization of the garage.
Yeah, that's 150% Mr. Kelly. Yes.
Well, so I will ask you this, Kelly. Where and how will you be observing the Mac observing the keynote?
I like that. I'm going to make a note of that later.
You may use it.
And every time I use it, I have to send Chuck a nickel. I am probably going to stream on the Apple TV, right on the other side of this wall. Well, in that closet is the Apple TV. It runs through the wall it runs through the back of the closet into the wall on the other side where it hooks up to the television. So I will probably be streaming the keynote from there. I will have my computer in my lap, making notes, trying to figure out what we're going to talk about. Usually Daily Observations holds for media event stuff, and we usually do it right afterward. So I will probably be alternating between coordinating in Slack with other folks at Mac Observer in the towers, and also probably smarting off on Twitter when there's something that needs to be that needs to be commented on. Because there's some of that I think is really interesting, and I also sometimes like to get the pulse of stuff on Twitter, because I have not been to very many keynotes at WWDC. I've watched a lot of them as they were happening, but I have not been in the vicinity except for a precious few, actually. So being able to sit and comment, and then also follow on Twitter and see sort of what the reaction is to some of those things. And, there's always somebody, and I don't remember who it is, but there's always somebody who counts the different people. How many men have been on stage? How many women have been on stage? How many people of color have been on stage? So having that count go by is always kind of nice.
It's there.
Yeah, things that I ordinarily comment on, I think year before, there was a kid that was editing a skateboarding video, and you could see his other arm, and it was in a cast, and you watched him go up, but you never saw him land in the video, and now he's got a broken arm. I see what you did there, Apple. It's if I see something like that and comment on it, that'll get some attention. Or seeing what other people pick up out of the keynote. This got announced, and everyone on Twitter has fallen in love with it, or this was announced and everyone on Twitter is now in a panic. 32-bit apocalypse is the thing that I can think of where there was much wailing and gnashing of teeth, possibly rending of garments, when it was announced that was going to happen. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad that wasn't a Zoom room, but being able to get the idea of those things, and then also just sort of coordinating some of the nuts and bolts stuff. Does somebody want to write about this? Is there somebody we could talk to who could give us more information on how this is going to affect people? What developers do we know that are going to be profoundly affected by this change that's coming to Mac OS or to iOS? Like, does one of us know somebody that we could, shoot them an email and be like, hey, how is this going to be a thing that changes, if you're not allowed to have a calculator on your phone anymore, then the first thing I'm going to do is go to James Thompson and go, hi, talk to me about the future of PCalc from, if this is a thing that's going to happen from now on. Hi, James. So like that's, there's a certain amount of that I think I will be doing is some sort of coordination and sort of seeing where things end up at the end of it. Because, we've talked a lot about, in other places, there's been a lot of talk about what people are hoping to see, and if it's the sea change that it sounds like it sounds like might be coming, I am very, very interested to find out what day-to-day developers, people who do this all day, every day, what this is going to mean for them.
Agreed. Brittany, how about you? What are your plans for Keynote?
I'm that person who's been indecisive because everything is so
decisive.
Yeah, it's so sporadic, and so I haven't been able to internally commit to what I'm doing. I took the whole week off work because I needed a vacation anyway, and so I have nothing to do but watch people code. But I don't know, because the kingdom is a little bit divided. At least it's not arguing to be divided, but just, where do I go to interact with people? And it's hard to know. Yeah. I guess I should have already known before I came on, but I haven't decided still.
Well, no, because I'm kind of in the same boat you are. I mean, I envision myself trying to be somewhere, to share the interaction. At the very least, I'll have Twitter open, and looking for the comments there. But yeah, it is going to feel just a little bit strange this year. But I do want to make sure before I forget this. My intent is to do a MacVoices Live next Tuesday night, and this time we will open up Zoom for anyone that wants to come and join whoever else we have. So you two obviously are invited. Everybody in the chat room's invited. Everyone's invited, because Zoom can hold a lot of people now. If we break Zoom, wow, that would be a fantastic thing to do. So, but
single-handedly.
Yeah. So, if you guys know anybody, or folks, if you're out there and you want to come and share some of your comments, please join us here. The logistics are that the Zoom information will be posted in the MacVoices group on Facebook. Now, that's a closed group, and that way we avoid Zoom bombers. So you'll need to request to become a member of the group. And then, about 7:30 or so, I will post that information, and then you'll be able to join us here live and add your commentary. So come one, come all. Guys, this is, this was just fun. I don't know if we solved anything. I hope, we made some people feel a little more comfortable. I think we all feel just a little disconnected this year. But, it's kind of the nature of the business, and I'd much rather be disconnected this way than have any of us sick or spreading anything to anyone. So, necessary evil.
Even if it were in person, I think I still would probably be home, because I would think long and hard. Well, if the given conditions being what they are, like, I don't know how interested I am in going, and primarily because I've gone to a lot of conventions and come home with the con crud or the con SARS, whatever, whatever you want to call it. There's the something that, I've heard it called, if you go to San Diego in August, I've heard it called the comma croup, people come home with weird cold illness and stuff. Anyway, regularly, normally healthy people are all come home and they're sniffling, they're in bed for a few days. That's happened to probably all of us at some point. All of us have attended enough conferences that it's just sort of a thing that happens sometimes. And I've definitely, I would think long and hard, given that this is something that could kill you, and generally con crud is not, by and large. So for that reason, I think I would still very much be interested in staying home, and will think long and hard about it next year if conditions are much like they are now. Because as much as I want to be there and as much as I want to hug people, I don't want to get sick, and I don't want to get anybody else sick. It's that simple.
Yeah. Good point. Real good point.
And more like, I know people who go who are immunodepressed in some way, or people who are people with asthma, which this is hard on, people who have autoimmune disorders, and all of those kinds of things are, make it a lot more complicated. So like I feel like it would be worse to be there and be like, Chuck has asthma. Mm-hmm. Hi, Chuck. And like, yeah. I feel like that would be worse in a way to want to be there and want to spend time with people, want to sit next to you at dinner, whatever, and not feel comfortable doing so. And, and so I feel like it would be really hard for me. And then I would feel bad if I knew anybody that came home and got sick, after we hung out. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how interested I will be next year if we're in the same situation. And given the way things are going now, I'm not convinced it will be dramatically different between now and then.
Yeah, point taken. Well, we're out of time, but before we go, I want to make sure that folks know where they can find both of you. So, Brittany, I'll start with you. Where do people find you on Twitter, the web? Where do you like to be contacted?
On Twitter, I'm the ADD Liberator. Just what you think it is. And if somebody is interested in any of the things that I do professionally, my website is conquer.consulting. And
don't forget the Star Wars yoga thing.
Yeah, if I'm real good, maybe I'll record another one next week.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. It's great to see you. Oh, wait a minute. We can't leave. We can't let you get off here, Brittany, without showing people your dress.
Oh, yeah. Because I always wear Star Wars dresses at conferences. So I thought the ones I bought for all the conferences I was going to go to this year, I'd at least wear on today. So I've got Stormtrooper on today. My Stormtrooper dress.
Very nice. Very nice. Kelly, I think everybody knows where they can find you, but just in case there's that one person on a desert island that just got rescued, where can they find you?
First of all, go get unrescued. You don't want to come back. However, I mean, really. But the rest, you can find me weekday mornings hosting the Mac Observer Daily Observations podcast over at macobserver.com. You can find me on the After Show podcast with Mike and Kelly. And you can also find me over on the Incomparable, where I have a show on the TV feed called Greetings from the Uncanny Valley about Westworld. And the rest of the time you can find me there, usually talking about Star Wars, sometimes playing a game. And just today we recorded a podcast about the movie Crazy Rich Asians. So, yeah. I have a lot of stuff to say. And I'm glad somebody gives me the chance to do it.
Yeah, well, you're always welcome here as one of your outlets. I know it can never be the only one, but one of them. But thanks so much. Really appreciate the time, Kelly. It's great to see you. And I'm sorry we won't see either one of you in San Jose, but yeah, hopefully next year. Next year.
I can't wait to start the Goonies podcast with you, Chuck.
Keep waiting. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices Live. We will be back next Tuesday here, and we invite you to join us to talk about the WWDC announcements. Until then, find MacVoices in the MacVoices feed or at macvoices.com. There are lots of interesting interviews with lots of interesting people. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit macvoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.